Bedtime Biography, Stasiland, Book Summary, Chapter 1. Have you ever wondered what makes a young person take a small risk and then change their whole life? Miriam did. She was born in 1952. That was 7 years after World War II. East Germany was new then. People were building a new country. The state promised equality. The state said everyone would get free education, steady work, and proper housing. The state said things would be fair. Miriam grew up believing those promises. She trusted the story she was told. She trusted the leaders and the rules. She trusted the idea of a state that provides for everyone. The brands and shops were run by the state. Prices were kept low. That was the claim. When Miriam was 11, the Berlin Wall went up. The government said it was not to keep people in. They said it was to keep swindlers out. They said people from the West came to buy cheap bread, milk, and butter. Then they sold those goods for more money in the West. The wall was sold as a shield. It was made to help build the ideal state. But people change. Miriam changed too. As she grew older, she began to see cracks. She watched the news and she watched the streets. When she was 16, big protests started in many cities. Leipzig burned with anger. People stood up and demanded change. They wanted a voice, they wanted to be heard. Miriam watched the protests and felt a new feeling. She was not alone, she saw. Others too had doubts. The state answered with force. They sprayed people with water from fire hoses. They arrested many. Miriam wondered why an equal country would punish people who spoke. She began to ask if the state's story was the whole truth. She and her friend Ursula wanted to help. They wanted to show they stood with the protesters. They did not plan a huge act. It was a young, brave choice. They decided to make leaflets. The leaflet said, "Consultation, not fire hoses." That line was small, but it mattered. Buying a printer or a typewriter was not easy in East Germany. You needed a special license. So Miriam and Ursula had to be clever. They went to a small shop and bought a children's stamp set. They used those rubber letters. They stamped every letter one by one. It took time and patience. It was slow work. It was also careful work. That night they sneaked out. They wore gloves and masks. They put leaflets in phone booths and tram stops. They even left some near the local Communist Party office. They were careful and quiet. On the way home, they made one small choice that mattered. They dropped a few leaflets in a boy's mailbox. He was a school friend. They thought no one would notice. The next day changed everything. The boy's parents took the leaflets to the authorities. They did what the state taught. If you saw a crime, you reported it. Possession of protest leaflets was treated as sedition. That is a serious crime. The Stasi moved fast. They came to the school. They questioned teachers and parents. They asked many students. They tried to find the source. It did not take long for them to suspect Miriam and Ursula. The two girls made a promise. They would not betray each other. They would hold the line no matter what. Soon the Stasi came to Miriam's house. They had dogs and gloves. They searched. Under the rug, they found a few rubber letters. Miriam felt sick. She thought she had thrown them away. She tried to keep calm and said she did not know how they got there. But the law was not on her side. They were taken to prison. The girls were put in solitary. For a month, they sat alone. No friends, no family, only silence and small rooms. The Stasi wanted a confession. They wanted a full story, signed and clear. A confession made it easy for the state to punish and to say the verdict was fair. They lied and said one had told on the other. But Ursula had not spoken. Solitary broke Miriam. She could not hold on. She confessed. The sound of her own voice saying she did it was heavy. The hurt and fear were heavy too. After that, and before Christmas, they released her. The trial would come later. Miriam felt the walls closing in. She wanted out. She wanted to escape the place that had turned against her. She thought about the Berlin Wall again. It had been for protection, they said. Now it felt like a prison. Miriam decided she would try to cross. She could not wait for a trial she knew would punish her. She could not live in a place where a whistle could make strangers come. She could not be a free person here. So she made a painful choice. This is not only Miriam's story, it is the story of many young people. It is the story of trust, doubt, and courage. It is about how a simple act, a few leaflets and a child's stamp set, can break open a life. It is about the cost of speaking up. It is about the fear that follows and the hope that pushes you to run. When you read the book that tells Miriam's life, you meet a girl who believed. You meet a girl who learned to doubt. You meet a young woman who chose to act. The small things matter. The small choices change everything. Miriam's hands were small and the rubber letters were small, but the ripple moved far. Ask yourself, what would you do at 16? Would you hide or would you place a leaflet? Would you keep a promise to a friend even if it hurts? Miriam kept her promise. She paid a price. She also kept her dignity. And in the end, she chose freedom.